Question 1. Legal citation and Blue Book formatting. In an environment where different components must interact seamlessly within legal documents, a law firm is preparing an appellate brief that heavily relies on multiple sources, including federal statutes, Supreme Court cases, and a scholarly law review article. But one of the attorneys insists that they can use informal citations in footnotes without following a formal citation guide, arguing that, as long as the meaning is clear, the format does not matter. Another attorney, however, insists on strict adherence to the Blue Book's citation rules. Which of the following statements best reflects the appropriate approach to citation in formal legal writing? A. Informal citations are acceptable as long as the meaning is clear, especially in persuasive legal writing. B. The Blue Book must always be followed exactly in all legal documents, with no exceptions for internal memoranda or client communications. C. Formal citation rules are essential in appellate briefs and court submissions, but internal firm memoranda may permit more relaxed approach. D. The Our Guide to Legal Citation is the authoritative guide for all legal citations in U.S. courts. Answer. C. Formal citation rules are essential in appellate briefs and court submissions, but internal firm memoranda may permit a more relaxed approach. Explanation. The Blue Book is the standard citation manual for legal writing in the United States, particularly in appellate briefs, trial memoranda, and law review articles. Courts require strict adherence to citation rules to ensure consistency and clarity in legal references. However, for documents such as firm memos, a more relaxed approach may be acceptable. The Our Guide to Legal Citation is an alternative to the Blue Book, but it is not the sole authoritative guide. Informal citations, or option A, can lead to ambiguity and lack of standardization, which is problematic in formal legal writing. Therefore, option C is correct because it acknowledges the need for strict formatting in court filings while recognizing flexibility in internal legal communications. Question 2. Legal research methods. During a comprehensive review of a process that needs improvement, a junior associate at a law firm is assigned to research a complex constitutional law issue involving the separation of powers doctrine. The associate begins by using Google to find news articles discussing recent Supreme Court rulings and then turns to Wikipedia for background information before writing a memorandum. The attorney reviews the memorandum and finds several factual inaccuracies. Which of the following would have been the most appropriate research strategy? A. Relying on law review articles and treatises as primary sources to interpret case law. B. Using Westlaw or LexisNexis to locate relevant Supreme Court decisions and checking their precedential value using a data service. C. Using only free resources such as Google Scholar and Wikipedia since they provide open access materials for legal research. D. Conducting statutory research first before turning to case law. Statutes always take precedence over judicial opinions. Answer. B. Using Westlaw or LexisNexis to locate relevant Supreme Court decisions and checking their precedential value using a data service. Explanation. Legal research must be conducted using authoritative sources to ensure accuracy and reliability. Wikipedia and news articles may provide useful background but are not authoritative legal sources. Law review articles, option A, are secondary sources that can provide analysis, should not replace primary legal sources such as statutes and case law. Free resources, option C, like Google Scholar, can be useful, but they do not offer the same level of data services, e.g. shepherdizing or keycite, necessary to verify case validity. While statutory law is primary, the separation of powers doctrine is largely developed through judicial interpretation, meaning case law research is critical. Therefore, option B is the correct answer because it emphasizes the use of Westlaw or LexisNexis for finding authoritative case law and verifying its validity. Question 3. Persuasive legal writing. In a case where multiple parties have different objectives, a litigation attorney is drafting an appellate brief for a complex contract dispute involving an ambiguous contract provision. The trial court ruled in favor of the opposing parties, citing the principle of contra proferentum, which interprets ambiguities against the drafter of the contract. The attorney wants to craft an argument for the appellate court that challenges this interpretation. The following would be the strongest legal argument. A. Arguing that contra proferentum should not apply because the parties were of equal bargaining power and the provision was mutually negotiated. B. Claiming that contra proferentum is an outdated doctrine that has no legal effect in modern contract law. C. Asserting that any ambiguity should be resolved solely based on the drafter's intent, disregarding the plain meaning rule. D. Contending that the contract provision should be reinterpreted based on the subjective intent of each party rather than objective contract principles. Correct answer A. Arguing that contra profferentum should not apply because the parties were of equal bargaining power and the provision was mutually negotiated. Explanation. Contra profferentum is a well-established contract interpretation doctrine that resolves ambiguities against the party that drafted the contract. However, is generally applied when there is unequal bargaining power or when a contract is a standard form agreement if the question was mutually negotiated by parties of equal bargaining strength. The doctrine may not be applicable. Therefore, option A presents the strongest legal argument. Option B is incorrect because contra profferentum is still widely used in contract law. Option C is incorrect because courts rely on objective contract interpretation principles, not just the drafter's intent. Option D is incorrect because contract interpretation focuses on objective intent and the plain meaning of the text rather than subjective interpretations. Question 4. When dealing with a complex system that shows occasional inconsistencies in judicial interpretation, legal researchers often face challenges in ensuring the accuracy of their findings. One key issue arises when courts in different jurisdictions interpret the same statutory provision in divergent ways, leading to conflicting precedents. A researcher conducting case law research must determine which authority is binding and how to address discrepancies in interpretations. Suppose a legal researcher is analyzing a statute that has been construed differently by the Second Circuit Court of Appeals and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The researcher needs to advise a client whose case is pending in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. What is the best approach for determining which interpretation should be followed? A. Rely on the interpretation provided by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals as it provides the broadest reading of the statute, ensuring flexibility in legal application. B. Follow the Second Circuit Court of Appeals interpretation as it is federal appellate decision, which is inherently binding on all jurisdictions. C. Examine Supreme Court rulings on the statute and determine whether controlling precedent exists. If not, analyze authority from both circuits and argue for the most applicable interpretation within the Seventh Circuit. D. Apply the interpretation of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in similar case, but if no binding precedent exists, rely solely on administrative agency guidance rather than judicial interpretations. Answer. C. Examine Supreme Court rulings on the statute and determine whether a controlling precedent exists. If not, analyze persuasive authority from both circuits and argue for the most applicable interpretation within the Seventh Circuit. Explanation. Federal circuit courts may interpret the same statute differently, leading to a circuit split. In such cases, legal researchers must first check if the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled on the issue, as Supreme Court decisions are binding on all lower courts. If no Supreme Court ruling exists, the researcher should analyze the precedents set by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals as its rulings are binding within its jurisdiction. If the Seventh Circuit has not ruled on the matter, decisions from other circuits may serve as persuasive authority but are not binding. Courts often consider persuasive precedent from jurisdictions when making rulings, particularly when there is no direct precedent within their own circuit. Administrative agency guidance may be helpful but does not override judicial authority unless the statute grants deference to agency interpretation under Chevron U.S.A. Inc. v. Natural Resources Defense Council Inc. 1984. Question 5. During a critical transition period where existing processes for citing legal sources are being revised, a law firm is shifting from the Blue Book citation format to the Ullard Guide to Legal Citation for internal memoranda. The transition raises concerns among attorneys and researchers regarding the differences in citation conventions, particularly in statutory and case law citations. A junior associate preparing a legal memorandum ensure accurate citations while adapting to the new format. Which of the following represents a key difference between the Blue Book and the Ullard Guide that the associate must account for? A. The Ullard Guide to Legal Citation does not use I for short form citations, whereas the Blue Book does. B. The Blue Book prohibits the use of signals such as C and E, while the Ullard Guide allows them. C. The Ullard Guide requires full citations for every reference, whereas the Blue Book allows short citations even for initial references. D. The Blue Book mandates all case names to be fully spelled out in citations, while the Ullard Guide abbreviates all case names regardless of context. Answer A. The Old Guide to Legal Citation does not use I for short form citations, whereas the Blue Book does. Explanation. The Old Guide to Legal Citation and the Blue Book share many similarities, but have key differences. One of the most notable distinctions is that the Old Guide does not use I for short form citations, whereas the Blue Book does. Instead, the Old Guide requires a full or abbreviated citation each time a source is referenced. This change can significantly impact citation efficiency and style. The Ulud Guide does allow signals such as seer and ear, just like the Blue Book, making option B incorrect. Option C is incorrect because both citation styles permit short citations after the first full citation, but they differ in structuring these citations. Option D is also incorrect because the Blue Book abbreviates case names following specific rules, while the Oud Guide follows a consistent approach but does not abbreviate all case names in every instance. Question 6. While analyzing the root causes of sequential problems in legal document drafting, a supervising attorney notices that junior associates frequently misinterpret statutory language due to improper statutory construction techniques. One junior associate is reviewing a statute that contains ambiguous language, leading to multiple plausible interpretations. The supervising attorney instructs the associate to apply canons of statutory interpretation. Which of the following approaches aligns with established legal principles for resolving statutory ambiguity? A. Use the plain meaning rule first, but if ambiguity remains, apply legislative intent and statutory context to determine the appropriate interpretation. B. Always defer to the broadest possible interpretation to ensure that the statute covers as many scenarios as possible. C. Assume that the legislature's intent is secondary to common usage and apply only dictionary definitions when interpreting ambiguous terms. D. Ignore history and agency interpretations as they are irrelevant to the judicial interpretation of statutory language. Answer A. Use the plain meaning rule first, but if ambiguity remains, apply legislative intent and statutory context to determine the appropriate interpretation. Explanation. The plain meaning rule dictates that statutory language should be interpreted according to its ordinary meaning unless the statute explicitly defines a term differently. If ambiguity remains, courts apply legislative intent and statutory context to clarify meaning. The Chevron doctrine also plays a role when agency interpretations are involved, though courts must first exhaust traditional interpretive methods before deferring to agencies. Option B is incorrect because statutory interpretation must balance textual meaning, legislative intent, and precedent rather than always favoring broad interpretations. Option C is incorrect because while dictionary definitions are useful, they are not the sole factor in statutory interpretation. Option D is incorrect because legislative history and agency interpretations can be essential tools for clarifying statutory meaning. Question 7. In a situation where formal requirements conflict with practical considerations in contract drafting, a transactional attorney must ensure enforceability while also addressing the client's business needs. A company seeks to include a highly restrictive non-compete clause in its employment contracts to prevent former employees from working for competitors. The attorney must ensure that the clause is enforceable under applicable law. Which of the following factors most likely to impact the enforceability of the non-compete clause? Whether the clause imposes reasonable time and geographic restrictions that protect legitimate business interests. B. The total compensation of the employee, as higher paid employees are always subject to stricter non-compete agreements. C. The fact that non-compete agreements are automatically valid in all states as long as both parties sign the contract. D. The inclusion of the severability clause, which allows a court to write the contract if part is deemed unenforceable. Answer A. Whether the clause imposes reasonable time and geographic restrictions that protect legitimate business interests. Explanation. Non-compete agreements are subject to reasonableness tests under state contract law. Courts assess whether restrictions on time and geography are reasonable and necessary to protect legitimate business interests, such as trade secrets or client relationships. If a non-compete clause is too broad, courts may invalidate it. Option B is incorrect because employee compensation alone does not determine enforceability. Courts focus on the clause's necessity and scope. Option C is incorrect because non-compete agreements are subject to state law and some states, e.g. California, heavily restrict or prohibit them. Option D is incorrect because while severability clauses can help preserve parts of contract, they do not automatically make an unenforceable non-compete clause valid. Question 8. A company is facing a lawsuit involving a breach of contract claim. The company's in-house legal team has determined that arbitration would be more favorable than litigation, given the nature of the dispute. However, the contract at issue does not contain an explicit arbitration clause. The opposing party refuses to agree to arbitration voluntarily. What is the most appropriate legal argument that the company can make to arbitration? A. The company can argue that arbitration is always a more efficient dispute resolution method and should be imposed by the court. B. The company can invoke the Federal Arbitration Act FAR and argue that, since arbitration is generally encouraged under federal law, the court should order arbitration despite the lack of clause. C. The company can argue that the contract contains an implied arbitration agreement because the parties conducted business in an industry where arbitration is standard. D. If there is evidence that both parties previously engaged in arbitration for similar disputes under this contract, the company may argue that an arbitration agreement was implied through their conduct. Answer: D. If there is evidence that both parties previously engaged in arbitration for similar disputes under this contract, the company may argue that an arbitration agreement was implied through their conduct. Explanation: arbitration agreements generally must be explicit to be enforceable. However, if the parties have a history of resolving disputes through arbitration, courts may recognize implied arbitration agreements under the doctrine of a dealing or course of performance. Option is incorrect because arbitration cannot be imposed merely for being efficient. Option B is incorrect because the Federal Arbitration Act FAR promotes arbitration only when an agreement to arbitrate exists. Option C is incorrect because industry standards alone do not establish an arbitration requirement unless incorporated into the contract. Question 9. An attorney is representing a plaintiff in a product liability case where a manufacturer is accused of producing defective medical devices. The defense argues that the device was approved by the Food and Drug Administration (FDA), and therefore the plaintiff's claims should be preempted under federal law. Under what circumstances might the plaintiff still successfully pursue the case? A. If the plaintiff can prove that the manufacturer failed to comply with FDA regulations leading to defective product. B. If the plaintiff can demonstrate that the FDA's approval process was flawed and should not have been granted. C. If the plaintiff argues that FDA regulations are insufficient and the manufacturer should be held to higher standard. D. If the plaintiff shows that other manufacturers voluntarily exceeded FDA safety standard, proving that the defendant was negligent. Answer: A. If the plaintiff can prove that the manufacturer failed to comply with FDA regulations leading to a defective product. Explanation: while FDA approval may provide some level of preemption, plaintiffs can still pursue state law claims under parallel claims doctrine by demonstrating that a manufacturer violated federal regulations leading to a defective product. Option B is incorrect because private plaintiffs cannot challenge the validity of an FDA decision. Option C is incorrect because courts generally defer to FDA standards rather than applying subjective higher standards. Option D is incorrect because voluntary safety measures by other manufacturers do not impose legal obligations on the defendant. Question 10. A tenant has entered into a commercial lease agreement for a property zoned for retail use. The local government subsequently changes zoning regulations, restricting retail businesses in the area. The tenant still has several years remaining on the lease and is considering legal options. What is the most viable legal argument the tenant can make to terminate the lease? A. The doctrine of frustration of purpose, since the zoning change prevents the tenant from using the property as intended. B. The concept of mutual mistake, since both parties assumed the zoning laws would remain unchanged. C. The argument of commercial impracticability, as changing economic conditions make the lease financially burdensome. D. The principle of constructive eviction, as the landlord should have anticipated zoning changes and advised the tenant accordingly. Answer: A. The doctrine of frustration of purpose, since the zoning change prevents the tenant from using the property as intended. Explanation: the frustration of purpose doctrine applies when an unforeseeable event undermines the fundamental reason both parties entered into the contract, making performance worthless. A zoning change that prohibits the intended use of the leased property could qualify. Option B is incorrect because mutual mistake applies only when both parties were mistaken at contract formation about a fundamental fact. Option C is incorrect because economic hardship does not justify commercial impracticability unless performance becomes objectively impossible. Option D is incorrect because constructive eviction involves a landlord's actions making the premises uninhabitable, which does not apply to zoning changes. Question 11. A software company is being sued for patent infringement by a competitor that holds a patent for a similar algorithm. The defendant argues that the patent should be invalidated under the doctrine of obviousness. What must the defendant prove to establish that the patent is invalid for obviousness? A. That the patented invention was already in use before the filing date of the competitor's patent. B. That the patented invention is so fundamental that it does not qualify for patent protection. C. That person having ordinary skill in the field would have found the invention obvious based on prior art. D. That the patent holder misrepresented the technology to the United States Patent and Trademark Office (USPTO). Answer. C. That a person having ordinary skill in the field would have found the invention obvious based on prior art. Explanation. Under 35 U.S.C. SS 103, patent is invalid for obviousness if person with ordinary skill in the relevant field would have found the invention obvious in light of prior art. Courts assess factors such as motivation to combine prior knowledge and whether there was an unexpected result. Option is incorrect because prior use alone does not establish obviousness. It may support an anticipation argument under 35 U.S.C. SS 102. Option B is incorrect because fundamental concepts may still be patented if novel and non-obvious. Option D is incorrect because misrepresentation would be relevant to inequitable conduct, not obviousness. Question 12. A bank customer discovers unauthorized transactions on their debit card statement and immediately notifies the bank. Under the Electronic Fund Transfer Act (EFTA), what is the bank's obligation regarding the disputed transactions? A. The bank must immediately refund all disputed transactions regardless of fault. B. The bank must investigate and resolve the dispute within specific time frame, typically 10 business days for provisional credit. C. The customer is automatically liable for all fraudulent transactions if their PIN was used. D. The bank has discretion on whether to investigate, as EFTA provides only voluntary guidelines. Answer. B. The bank must investigate and resolve the dispute within a specific time frame, typically 10 business days for provisional credit. Explanation. Under the EFTA 15 U.S.C. SS 1693, bank must investigate disputes and provisionally credit the customer's account if the investigation extends beyond 10 business days. If fraud is confirmed, the customer is not liable. Option is incorrect because banks are not required to immediately refund disputes without an investigation. Option C is incorrect because liability limits depend on when the fraud is reported. Option D is incorrect because EFTA mandates specific procedures for resolving disputes. Question 13. A corporate board of directors is considering a proposed merger but has concerns about potential shareholder lawsuits. Under what circumstances might the board be protected from liability under the business judgment rule? A. If the board makes an informed decision in good faith and with the honest belief that the merger serves the company's best interests. B. If the board ensures that all shareholders receive equal financial compensation even if the merger results in net loss. C. If the board delegates the merger decision entirely to an independent third party, avoiding personal involvement. D. If the board members disclose any conflicts of interest, regardless of how they've on the merger. Answer A. If the board makes an informed decision in good faith and with the honest belief that the merger serves the company's best interests. Explanation. The business judgment rule protects directors from liability when they act informedly in good faith and in the company's best interest. This allows boards to make strategic decisions without fear of litigation as long as they do not engage in fraud, self-dealing, or gross negligence. Option B is incorrect because shareholder compensation is not the determining factor. Option C is incorrect because abdication of duty does not shield directors from liability. Option D is incorrect because disclosure of conflicts does not automatically absolve directors of improper actions. Question 14. While examining inconsistencies across various units, an organization discovers that its reporting mechanisms produce conflicting financial statements. The discrepancies are due to different accounting methods being applied across departments. What is the most effective approach to resolve this issue? A. Require all departments to use the same accounting software without altering their current methods. B. Implement a centralized accounting policy that standardizes methods across all units while ensuring compliance with regulatory standards. C. Allow departments to continue using different methods as long as they document their reasoning in detailed footnotes. D. Assign a third-party auditor to generate an independent report reconciling different approaches without modifying internal processes. Answer. B. Implement a centralized accounting policy that standardizes methods across all units while ensuring compliance with regulatory standards. Explanation. Standardizing accounting methods under a centralized policy ensures consistency, regulatory compliance, and accurate financial reporting. Option is incorrect because software alone does not resolve methodological inconsistencies. Option C is incorrect because documenting differences does not eliminate reporting conflicts. Option D is incorrect because third-party reconciliation does not prevent future discrepancies. Question 15. During a critical transition period where existing processes are being replaced, a project manager notices that team members are reluctant to adopt the new workflow due to uncertainty and lack of training. What strategy would be most effective in ensuring a smooth transition? A. Mandate the new workflow immediately and provide minimal training to encourage self-learning. B. Develop a phased implementation plan that includes hands-on training and continuous support. C. Retain both old and new processes indefinitely to allow for flexibility. D. Assign penalties for non-compliance to enforce quicker adoption. Answer. B. Develop a phased implementation plan that includes hands-on training and continuous support. Explanation. A phased approach with hands-on training and support minimizes resistance and ensures a structured adoption process. Option A is incorrect because forcing immediate adoption without support leads to errors and frustration. Option C is incorrect because maintaining two systems indefinitely increases inefficiency. Option D is incorrect because penalties create a negative learning environment rather than encouraging adaptation. Question 16. In a multi-location scenario where consistency requirements are high, a retail company is experiencing inventory discrepancies between stores due to varied stock management practices. What is the best solution to address this issue? A. Implement a unified inventory management system with automated tracking across all locations. B. Allow each store to continue using its own system, but require periodic manual reconciliations. C. Centralize all inventory decisions at the corporate level, removing store-level input. D. Conduct more frequent physical inventory checks without changing the underlying system. Answer A. Implement a unified inventory management system with automated tracking across all locations. Explanation. A unified inventory management system with automation ensures consistency, accuracy, and efficiency. Option B is incorrect because manual reconciliations are time-consuming and prone to error. Option C is incorrect because centralization removes flexibility needed for local operations. Option D is incorrect because frequent checks do not address root causes of inconsistencies. Question 17. When dealing with a complex system that shows occasional failures and its team identifies that downtime issues stem from inconsistent software updates across servers, what is the best long-term strategy to prevent this issue? A. Implement an automated update management system that synchronizes software across all servers. B. Assign each team member the responsibility of manually updating servers on a rotating schedule. C. Perform updates only when major failures occur to minimize disruptions. D. Require all teams to manually check software versions weekly. Answer A. Implement an automated update management system that synchronizes software across all servers. Explanation. An automated update system ensures consistency, security, and reliability across all servers. Option B is incorrect because manual updates increase the risk of human error. Option C is incorrect because reactive updates lead to prolonged downtime. Option D is incorrect because manual version checks are inefficient. Question 18. In a situation where formal requirements conflict with operational realities, a company finds that strict compliance with an external regulation would reduce efficiency and increase costs. What is the most strategic course of action? A. Seek a regulatory exemption or alternative compliance solution that aligns with operational needs. B. Ignore the regulation and prioritize operational efficiency. C. Implement the regulation as written, regardless of the impact on efficiency. D. Delay compliance until enforcement actions occur. Answer A. Seek a regulatory exemption or alternative compliance solution that aligns with operational needs. Explanation. Requesting an exemption or alternative compliance method allows the company to meet regulatory obligations while optimizing efficiency. Option B is incorrect because ignoring regulations can result in legal consequences. Option C is incorrect because blind adherence may not be necessary if alternatives exist. Option D is incorrect because delayed compliance increases legal and financial risks. Question 19. while analyzing the root causes of sequential problems in a production line, a manufacturing team determines that minor equipment failures lead to cascading delays. What is the most effective long-term solution? A. Implement a predictive maintenance system to identify and address equipment issues before failures occur. B. Increase staff presence on the production line to detect failures more quickly. C. Schedule more frequent manual inspections of equipment. D. Replace equipment only after it fully breaks down to maximize usage. Answer A. Implement a predictive maintenance system to identify and address equipment issues before failures occur. Explanation. Predictive maintenance uses data to anticipate failures, minimizing downtime and improving efficiency. Option B is incorrect because monitoring does not prevent issues. Option C is incorrect because manual inspections are inefficient compared to automated systems. Option D is incorrect because reactive maintenance increases costs and delays. Question 20. During an emergency response where multiple areas are impacted, a crisis management team must prioritize actions to minimize overall damage. What is the best approach? A. Focus first on resolving issues that affect the largest number of people. B. Address the simplest problems first to clear them quickly. C. Work on all problems simultaneously to ensure fairness. D. Wait for a full assessment before taking any action. Answer 8. Focus first on resolving issues that affect the largest number of people. Explanation. Prioritizing high-impact areas ensures the most effective crisis response. Option B is incorrect because addressing simple problems first may neglect urgent ones. Option C is incorrect because spreading resources too thin reduces effectiveness. Option D is incorrect because waiting delays necessary action. Question 21. In a scenario where efficiency decreases across multiple locations, a logistics company finds that inconsistent delivery routes are causing unnecessary delays. What is the best corrective action? A. Optimize and standardize delivery routes using data analytics. B. Allow each location to determine its own routes based on local preferences. C. Hire additional drivers to compensate for inefficiencies. D. Increase shipment volumes to offset delays. Answer A. Optimize then standardize delivery routes using data analytics. Explanation. Using data analytics to standardize delivery routes improves efficiency and consistency. Option B is incorrect because individual route decisions lead to fragmentation. Option C is incorrect because hiring more staff does not address underlying inefficiencies. Option D is incorrect because increasing volume does not solve logistical delays. Question 22. When implementing backup procedures across various departments, an organization notices that teams are hesitant to follow new protocols. What is the most effective strategy to ensure compliance? A. Provide clear training and demonstrate the value of the new backup procedures. B. Enforce penalties for non-compliance to ensure adherence. C. Allow departments to opt out if they find the procedures unnecessary. D. Introduce the procedures gradually without formal enforcement. Answer A. Provide clear training and demonstrate the value of the new backup procedures. Explanation. Clear training and demonstrated benefits encourage voluntary adoption and ensure compliance. Option B is incorrect because penalties create resistance rather than understanding. Option C is incorrect because optional participation undermines effectiveness. Option D is incorrect because gradual rollout without enforcement weakens accountability. Question 23. During the introduction of new methods where coordination is key, a healthcare facility experiences difficulties in implementing electronic health records. What is the best approach to overcome resistance? A. Provide role-specific training and technical support to ease the transition. B. Require immediate full adoption with no exceptions. C. Maintain paper records indefinitely alongside A's. D. Wait for staff to adopt the system at their own pace. Answer A. Provide role-specific training and technical support to ease the transition. Explanation. Role-specific training and support reduce confusion and increase adoption. Option B is incorrect because forcing immediate change creates resistance. Option C is incorrect because dual systems add complexity. Option D is incorrect because waiting without structure delays progress. Question 24. In an environment where different components must interact seamlessly, a global supply chain experiences frequent delays due to miscommunication between vendors, manufacturers, and distributors. What is the best strategy to enhance coordination? A. Implement an integrated digital platform that provides real-time visibility and automated updates across all stakeholders. B. Require vendors and manufacturers to submit manual reports on a fixed schedule. C. Hold periodic meetings to review delays and determine next steps. D. Allow each stakeholder to use their own system as long as they document any changes in a shared spreadsheet. Answer A. Implement an integrated digital platform that provides real-time visibility and automated updates across all stakeholders. Explanation: an integrated digital platform enhances real-time coordination and minimizes delays. Option B is incorrect because manual reports do not provide instant updates. Option C is incorrect because periodic meetings do not prevent ongoing miscommunications. Option D is incorrect because using multiple systems with manual documentation leads to inconsistencies. Question 25. When scaling up operations that experience significant variations in demand, a retail company struggles to maintain efficient staffing levels. What is the best approach to optimize workforce allocation? A. Utilize demand forecasting tools to adjust staffing levels based on historical data and trends. B. Maintain a fixed staffing schedule to ensure stability. C. Hire excess staff year-round to handle peak periods. D. Use last-minute scheduling adjustments based on daily sales reports. Answer A. Utilize demand forecasting tools to adjust staffing levels based on historical data and trends. Explanation: demand forecasting tools optimize staffing by predicting demand fluctuations. Option B is incorrect because fixed schedules do not accommodate changing demand. Option C is incorrect because overstaffing increases costs. Option D is incorrect because last-minute scheduling creates inefficiencies and employee dissatisfaction. Question 26. While updating traditional approaches where interconnections exist, a financial institution struggles to modernize its legacy systems without disrupting ongoing operations. What is the most effective strategy? A. Adopt a phased transition plan where new and old systems operate in parallel before full implementation. B. Replace the legacy system all at once for a faster transition. C. Maintain the legacy system indefinitely while adding manual workarounds. D. Delay modernization efforts until operations slow down. Answer A. Adopt a phased transition plan where new and old systems operate in parallel before full implementation. Explanation: a phased transition minimizes disruption and ensures a smooth shift to modern systems. Option B is incorrect because a full replacement risks system failures. Option C is incorrect because manual workarounds reduce efficiency. Option D is incorrect because delaying modernization leads to increased technical debt. Question 27. During a seamless transition where continuity must be maintained, a hospital upgrades its electronic medical records (EMR) system but faces challenges ensuring uninterrupted patient care. What is the best approach to manage this transition? A. Implement a dual system period where both old and new systems are accessible until the transition is complete. B. Shut down the old system immediately to force full adoption of the new EMR. C. Train staff after the new system is implemented to address any emerging issues. D. Keep paper records as a backup and transition gradually over multiple years. Answer A. Implement a dual system period where both old and new systems are accessible until the transition is complete. Explanation: a dual system approach ensures continuity of care while staff adapts. Option B is incorrect because sudden transitions increase patient risk. Option C is incorrect because post-implementation training leads to inefficiencies. Option D is incorrect because overly long transitions create confusion and inconsistencies. Question 28. When implementing backup procedures across various locations, a logistics company finds that local teams fail to follow the new protocols. What is the most effective strategy to ensure compliance? A. Conduct regular training and integrate automated compliance tracking into the system. B. Allow each location to customize backup procedures to their preferences. C. Penalize locations that fail to comply with the new procedures. D. Delay full enforcement to give teams more time to adjust. Answer A. Conduct regular training and integrate automated compliance tracking into the system. Explanation: training and automated tracking enhance accountability and compliance. Option B is incorrect because customizing procedures reduces standardization. Option C is incorrect because penalties create resistance rather than cooperation. Option D is incorrect because delaying enforcement weakens compliance efforts. Question 29. In a high-stakes environment where multiple challenges arise simultaneously, an airline faces severe flight delays due to weather disruptions, technical failures, and scheduling conflicts. What is the best way to manage this crisis? A. Prioritize critical flights, provide real-time updates, and reallocate resources dynamically. B. Delay all flights equally to maintain fairness. C. Focus only on technical repairs and let scheduling resolve itself naturally. D. Offer blanket compensation without addressing underlying causes. Answer A. Prioritize critical flights, provide real-time updates, and reallocate resources dynamically. Explanation. A prioritized, real-time approach minimizes disruption and enhances customer trust. Option B is incorrect because equal delays are not always logical. Option C is incorrect because ignoring scheduling issues prolongs disruptions. Option D is incorrect because compensation alone does not solve operational failures. Question 30. When developing a solution that must address opposing needs, the city government must balance economic growth with environmental sustainability. What is the most effective approach? A. Develop policies that incentivize green business practices while supporting economic expansion. B. Prioritize environmental protection at the expense of economic growth. C. Focus entirely on business-friendly policies deferring environmental concerns. D. Allow each industry to regulate itself without government intervention. Answer A. Develop policies that incentivize green business practices while supporting economic expansion. Explanation. Balanced policies ensure long-term sustainability and growth. Option B is incorrect because excluding economic considerations harms development. Option C is incorrect because ignoring environmental concerns leads to long-term risks. Option D is incorrect because self-regulation often lacks enforcement.